I never thought that losing my house would feel less painful than losing my son. But that's exactly what happened the day I rang Andre's doorbell wearing a soot-stained coat, with nothing but a duffel bag slung over my shoulder and ash still clinging to my scalp. He flung the door open like I was a delivery, looked past me like maybe I was bringing trouble behind me. "Get out, Ma," he said flat. "Sophia doesn't want you here." He didn't even ask what had happened. Didn't notice the smell of smoke still rising off my sleeves. Didn't see my hands shaking, my eyes red from more than the fire. It was March 2nd, and my life had just turned to cinders 24 hours earlier. My little bungalow on Collier Drive, gone in an accidental fire they said started in the kitchen socket. Insurance company had me on hold all morning, and I'd left with the policy papers half charred and stuffed in my bag. But Andre's voice held no room. No softness. Just the closing of a door, before the door even shut. I stood there on the stoop of his Cascade Heights condo, a place I helped him buy his first furniture for, back when he was still grateful enough to say thank you. I stood there long enough for the Ring doorbell to capture it all. My cracked lips trying to form words, his hand on the frame, the cold slap of rejection in 1080p. It wasn't until the lock clicked that I realized my knees had buckled a little. I eased myself back down the steps, clutching the duffel tighter. No call to come back. No. Wait, Ma. Just wind and cement. I wandered to the sidewalk and sat on the curb across from the building, feeling the city move around me like I wasn't part of it anymore. I reached into the bag and found the insurance folder, still damp from the fire hose and stained on one edge. Useless without a valid policy, but I held it like proof that something of my life had once existed. I didn't cry, I just sat. The numbness set in before the tears could. Andre's porch light flicked off. That was the last thing I saw before I stood up and started walking. By morning, the numbness had sunk into my bones like cold. I checked into the Peachtree Inn off Hollowell for $42 and slid the receipt into my wallet like it meant something. Room 12 smelled like mold and bleach. The walls were yellowed where old frames used to hang. I didn't touch the bedspread, just laid my coat over it and sat there with my knees together, the duffel by my feet. There was a mirror above the sink, cracked in the top corner. I caught my reflection in it and almost didn't recognize myself. My eyes looked glassy, skin grayed under the motel lighting. Ash still clung to my hairline. I washed my face in lukewarm water and pulled out my documents. My Social Security card, still dry. My homeowner's policy, burned at the edges, policy number barely legible. That house was mine for 28 years. Paid off. I'd canceled the alarm service last year, thinking I was saving money. Now I was squatting in a borrowed space with no home, no savings, and a child who'd made it clear I wasn't welcome. Andre didn't call. Not once. I stared at my phone waiting for it to buzz. It never did. I hadn't eaten since the night before the fire. Even then, it was just some toast and hot tea. My appetite hadn't come back, but my shame had. It filled up my stomach like stones. At noon, I walked to the nearby BP and bought a banana and a bottled water. The clerk looked at me sideways when I handed her a damp $5 bill. Back in the room, I sat on the edge of the bed and peeled the banana slow, like if I stretched the moment out long enough, I wouldn't have to face what was next. What was next? No home, no Andre, no one. I used to think being invisible was something that happened to older women gradually, like fading print on a receipt. But it had taken just one day, one fire, one slammed door. I pressed my hand flat against my chest, half expecting to feel some flutter of identity, something to remind me who I was. Instead, there was just quiet. The next morning, I woke early, not from rest, but from habit. My body still thought it was home. I poured the motel coffee, thin as dishwater, and sat on the hard chair with my legs tucked up under me, staring at the wall. My mind wandered where it always did when things got too quiet, back to the rhythm of my old life. Every morning before the fire, I made tea at 6:45 sharp. Lemon balm or orange spice, depending on my mood. I'd sit out on the porch of my little house on Collier Drive, with my robe tight and my slippers on, watching the day stretch itself out slow. My porch plants, ferns and bright geraniums in clay pots, lined the railing like sentinels. Miss Lorna from across the street would wave on her morning walk, and I'd raise my mug. I was a seamstress, not retired, just working lighter hours. Word-of-mouth clients, alterations, wedding hems, church dresses. I kept a little ledger by the phone, neat with names and pickup dates, notes like, let out waist 1 inch, or needs pearl buttons. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. Saturdays were for sweeping the front steps, running errands, and calling Andre just to check in. Half the time he didn't answer. The other half, he needed something. A form filled out, a loan co-signed, groceries covered till payday. I never kept score. It felt good to be needed. At least it used to. Now I sat in this colorless motel, clutching photos I kept tucked in my wallet. Christmas 2024. Andre with his arm draped over Sophia's shoulder. Me in the background, barely in frame, wearing the red scarf he gave me 1 year and never remembered again. That house had been appraised at $180,000 last summer. Paid off in full. I'd worked 32 years to own it outright. Raised Andre there since he was 9. Back then, it was just the two of us. He used to say I made it feel like the safest place on earth. Now it was blackened wood and police tape, and I was the one with nowhere to go. I pressed the photo against my chest and closed my eyes. For a minute, I could almost smell the porch jasmine and hear the screen door creak open. Almost. I don't know when Andre stopped being my boy. It snuck up on me. Like mold behind drywall. Quiet, spreading, invisible until it starts to crumble the whole structure. I remember the day I bought him his first car. A 2002 Honda Civic, charcoal gray, used but clean. Cost me $5,700 from a neighbor who knew I always paid in cash. Andre was 19, fresh into Georgia State, walking back and forth from the dorms. I remember how his whole face lit up when I handed him the keys. "Queen," he said, hugging me tight. "You're the real MVP." I carried that nickname for a while, Queen, at least until Sophia came into the picture. I paid off his student loans too. He'd taken out $26,000 total over 4 years. When the interest ballooned, I just covered it. Didn't tell anyone. Just pulled from my retirement drawdown and kept moving. I had no pension. Just a few mutual funds and a habit of pinching pennies so tight they squealed. Back then, when he'd call, I answered on the first ring. Didn't matter if I was mid-client or fixing dinner. If Andre needed something, I was there. He used to joke, "If I ever make it big, Ma, you won't ever lift a finger again." But the only thing that got lifted was my bank account. Little by little, month after month. I still have screenshots of the Cash App transfers. $300 here, $850 there. Car repair, moving expenses, help with rent, just until next Friday. I have them all saved in a folder titled For Andre, like it was a love letter to his potential. Over 8 years, I sent him $36,400, not counting groceries, Ubers, and the time I co-signed for his MacBook. Now, standing in that motel with the TV buzzing static and my knees aching from the cold, I scrolled through those screenshots on my phone, each one a timestamp of hope. Each one a receipt for a love that was supposed to come back to me. But the last time he called me Queen? 2019, the same year he moved in with Sophia. Now I was barely Ma. No warmth in it. Just a syllable, spat out like gum flavor gone flat. That night in the motel, I couldn't sleep. The TV was on, but muted, flickering shadows across the walls like ghosts pacing. I sat cross-legged on the bed with a legal pad in my lap, pen in hand, and started tallying it all. Not just the Cash App transfers or the loans. Everything. I started with the big ones. 2002 Honda Civic, $5,700. Student loans payoff, $26,000. Apartment deposit plus first rent with Sophia, $1,850. Furniture from rooms to go, $1,200. Graduation trip to Miami, $900. Groceries during COVID, roughly $200 per month for 12 months equals $2,400. Emergency dental work, $680. Co-signed credit card debt I quietly paid off in 2023, $3,000. Bridge money between jobs, 3 times, $4,070. Then I added the smaller, quieter things. Monthly help, averaged, $150 per month over 4 years equals $7,200. Uber gift cards, food delivery, birthday gifts, $800. Clothing, shoes, laptop repairs, $1,000. I wrote each one slow, like I was confessing something. The total at the bottom, $47,800, almost $50,000, nearly my entire savings outside of Social Security. And that didn't count the time, the energy, the heartache. I stared at the number until it blurred. Andre had once said, "You're my mama. That's what mamas do." I remembered that line because he said it with that tone. Like love and obligation were the same thing. Like what I'd given wasn't generosity. It was expected. My payment for having brought him into the world. But I didn't owe him a life of comfort at the cost of my own. I flipped the legal pad closed and held it to my chest like a shield. Outside, the motel light buzzed and flickered against the window. I imagined the porch light at my house, the one that used to stay on till Andre got home. How I'd check the clock and the driveway, hoping he'd made it back safe. Now I was the one in the dark, waiting. Only this time, no one was coming to check on me. The first real warning had come 6 months earlier. October 2024. Warm day, gold leaves curling up on the sidewalk like old receipts. I'd dropped by Andre's condo with a Tupperware of collard greens and cornbread, still warm from the oven. Sophia answered the door in yoga pants and a silk head wrap, her eyes darting past me before landing somewhere over my shoulder. "Oh," she said, like I was a delivery she hadn't ordered. "This is kind of a bad time." Behind her, I saw Andre on the couch, game controller in hand. He looked up but didn't stand. I smiled anyway, holding up the food. "Just brought y'all dinner. Didn't want it to go to waste." She crossed her arms. "This is our house now, Ms. Renee. You can't just drop by unannounced." Her words caught me mid-breath. "Our house?" I'd put down half the deposit for that condo when Andre's credit wasn't strong enough to qualify a loan. My name had been on the paperwork until they refinanced last spring. "I'm sorry," I said quietly. "Didn't mean to intrude." Andre laughed then. Light, nervous, but not in my defense. "She's just saying, Ma, we tryna set some boundaries. You can't just pop up." Boundaries. Like I was a stray. I stood there, smiling too wide, holding that Tupperware until it burned my fingers. "Of course," I said, handing it to her. "Won't happen again." When I got home, I called Miss Lorna from across the street. She could hear it in my voice before I said a word. "Baby," she said, "they sound like they building a wall you ain't meant to climb." She was right. I didn't confront them. I just left a voicemail later that night. "Hey, just wanted to say sorry for stopping by. Y'all enjoy the food. Love you." I saved that voicemail after I hung up. Still have it. The apology of a mother learning her own child's door had turned into a border. By March 4th, 2 days after the fire, I still hadn't heard a word from Andre. I hadn't slept much. Motel walls too thin. Heat too low. My phone sat silent on the dresser beside the Gideon Bible. That morning, I stood outside the Quick Stop on Campbellton Road, with a coffee I couldn't finish and enough anxiety to rot my stomach. The gas station air smelled like diesel and desperation. I opened my text thread with Andre and typed, "Can we talk for 5 minutes? Please, I need to know where we stand." I watched the typing dots blink and vanish. 3 minutes later, a one-word reply, "Don't." That was it. No punctuation, no question, no room for me in those 5 letters. My throat tightened. I tried calling. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Nothing. A third time, and the line clicked once before cutting off. When I opened the contact thread, I saw it. "You've been blocked." It was like being locked out of my own blood. The screen blurred as tears welled up, but I blinked them back fast. Not here. Not in front of the man washing his windshield 2 pumps over or the clerk counting scratch-offs through the window. I walked back to the motel and sat on the edge of the bed, scrolling through my checking account. Balance, $214. That was all I had left. No one teaches you how quickly your financial life can vanish. One lapsed policy, one burned house, one son with a blocked number. The thing is, I wasn't just mourning my home. I was mourning Andre, the boy who used to fall asleep in my lap during thunderstorms, the teenager who called me at midnight during finals week just to hear me say he could do it. That boy had vanished somewhere between rent payments and Sophia's hard stare. Now all I had was a silent phone and a dwindling bank balance, and a slowly rising panic that I didn't know where I'd sleep next week, or the week after that. I took the number 73 bus to the Atlanta Fulton Public Library downtown. I needed to check my insurance claim status. My phone was too old and temperamental to handle attachments, so I logged into the library computer lab with a visitor's pass and waited in line behind a teenage boy playing Fortnite and a woman arguing with her bank over speakerphone. The email was there. Time-stamped 9:18 a.m. Subject. Claim denied, lapsed policy. Ms. Renee Walker, we regret to inform you that your homeowner's policy number 38704990 was canceled on January 14, 2025, due to non-payment. Your last premium of $167 was not received. As a result, your property at 2136 Collier Drive is no longer covered under this policy. No payout will be issued. Please contact us if you have questions. I read it 3 times, then again, each word heavier than the last. The air felt thin. My hands went cold on the keyboard. I whispered, I missed one payment. Just one. January had been tight. Andre needed help covering a surprise expense. His car needed brakes. I'd pushed my own bill to the back burner, figuring I'd catch up the next month. But fire doesn't care about intentions. And neither does State Farm. I called Andre from the library phone, still clinging to the illusion that maybe, he didn't know. Maybe if I explained, he'd help. When he answered, his voice was sharp. You let your policy lapse. That's on you, Ma. I got my own house to worry about. I tried to explain how I'd covered for him in January, how I thought I had a grace period. But he cut me off. That ain't my fault. You should have handled your business. Click. That was it. My head dropped into my hands as the fluorescent lights buzzed above. Around me, nobody noticed the woman whose life had just fallen through her fingers. I was just another face at a library terminal. Ms. Hadley, the head librarian, must have seen something in my face when I stood up. She touched my arm lightly and said, If you need to print anything, just come to the desk. We won't charge you. I nodded, barely managing. Thank you. It was the first kindness I'd felt in 5 days. By March 6th, I was sleeping in my car. A 2011 Camry with a cracked dashboard and a busted AC. I parked behind Mount Zion Baptist, tucked behind the community garden where the light didn't reach too strong and the security guard didn't patrol too hard. The church lot was quiet at night, streetlight buzz low and steady, cicadas humming even though it was early for them. I leaned the seat back, covered my legs with my old coat, and kept my purse clutched to my chest. Couldn't risk drifting too deep. Around 2 a.m., I scrolled through Facebook just to feel human again. My feed loaded slow on motel Wi-Fi, but when it did, the first post slapped me harder than any insult could have. Andre Johnson, Sun Miami vibes, Sun vacation needed. New beginnings. Hashtag blessed. Hashtag grown and sexy. Photo, Andre on a boat, Sophia in a bikini beside him, champagne in hand. A caption full of sunshine and not one drop of memory. I screenshot it. Then I zoomed in. His watch, that same gold Movado I co-signed for last December. Sophia had on sunglasses, black Gucci frames she'd called a necessity for migraines. I'd paid for those too, though she never said thank you. I stared at the photo until the screen dimmed. While I slept in a car with $12 in my wallet, my son was on a yacht sipping wine I probably paid for. A voice startled me. Pastor Green's, outside near the rear fellowship door. I pressed lower in the seat, praying he wouldn't see me. But he did. He didn't knock, didn't ask questions. He just looked through the window, eyes gentle but unreadable. Then he nodded once, slow, and walked back inside. He didn't say a word. I cried after he left. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady tears that soaked my scarf and clung to my collar. The false hope had broken. There'd be no rescue. By the next morning, March 7th, something in me hardened. It wasn't anger. It wasn't even pain. It was something colder, older, a kind of knowing that settles in your bones after you've been left out in the cold too long. I drove down Campbellton Road, no destination in mind, gas tank blinking orange, wallet almost empty, hands stiff on the steering wheel. And then I saw it, a payphone tucked beside a boarded-up laundromat, the kind you forget still exist until you need one. I parked and sat staring at it for a while, engine off. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the oldest section of my contacts. Earl Whitaker. I hadn't spoken to him in 31 years. Not since the summer of '94, when we said goodbye in a hospital waiting room, me with Andre in a stroller, him heading off to California with big dreams and a startup job that paid in stock options. I picked up the receiver, fed it coins from the glove box, and dialed the number. It still worked. 2 rings. Then his voice. "This is Earl." I froze. The world around me hushed. "Earl, it's Renee." A beat. Then, "Renee Walker? From Collier Drive?" I nodded like he could see me. "Yeah, I didn't know who else to call." His tone softened into something I hadn't heard in years. "Tell me what happened." And so I did. Not all of it, just enough. The fire, Andre, the motel, the car, my account balance, my silence. He didn't interrupt, just breathed on the other end like a man remembering everything all at once. Then he said, "Stay right there. I'll wire you some money now." I shook my head, though no one could see it. "I didn't call for that." "I know. But I'm doing it anyway. Get yourself somewhere safe, Renee." The line went quiet after that. But the silence didn't feel empty. It felt like a rope tossed across a chasm. A tether. I hung up and stared at the payphone for a long minute. Earl Whitaker. The man I loved before I learned to settle. A man who, after 31 years, still picked up on the second ring. An hour later, I stood at the Western Union on Lee Street, hands trembling as I signed the receipt. Amount received, $3,000. Sender, Earl Whitaker, Oakland, California. Ms. Nola, the woman behind the plexiglass, didn't ask questions. She just handed me the stack of cash, 50s in a white envelope, and said, "You be safe now, Miss Renee." I almost forgot what it felt like to be called by name with kindness. I thanked her, tucked the envelope deep into my coat pocket, and stepped out into the sun. For the first time in a week, I didn't feel like I was shrinking. I had options now. Not many, but enough to breathe. I walked 3 blocks before I checked my phone. 1 unread message. "Andre, where you at?" No punctuation. No explanation. After 5 days of silence and a blocked number, now he was looking for me? I didn't reply. I just kept walking. That night, I checked into the Old Haven Suites off Metropolitan. Weekly rate, $265. Clean enough, private enough. The mattress was thin, but it was a bed. I set the envelope in the drawer beside the remote, made tea from the vending machine, and turned off my phone. I needed to hear myself think. The money gave me more than warmth. It gave me clarity. I started a notebook that night. Labeled it, Next. First page, names of people I trusted. Second page, tasks. Cancel access. Revoke cosigns. Digitize records. Make everything legible. I laid the phone flat beside me, still off, and stared at the ceiling until I could see the grid of it like a map. I wouldn't ask Andre to explain anything. Not now. I'd show him instead. March 8th, I woke up with purpose. No more waiting. No more tears into motel pillows. I dressed in my cleanest clothes, packed my documents, and headed to the Herndon Community Center Tech Lab. The place was mostly teenagers and job seekers, but Rashida at the front desk greeted me with warmth and handed over a USB drive like it was sacred. "Take your time," she said. I took the far left computer, double-checked my Wi-Fi signal, and opened a brand new Google Drive folder. Folder name: Walker Records Subfolders, Insurance Denial, Financial Support Logs, Bank Transfers, Voicemails, Photos. I scanned every paper I had, every Cash App screenshot, every bank statement showing deposits and withdrawals with Andre's name, the charred insurance denial letter, the photo of my burned house, the Facebook screenshot of him in Miami. I uploaded voicemail audio files, his voice saying, "That ain't my fault, Ma." I even found the refinance paperwork, where I had removed my name from his condo loan, dated August 2024. I added that too. Each file was a piece of the truth. Each upload, a step toward visibility. I printed backup copies, 3 sets, neatly hole-punched and sealed in folders. As I worked, Rashida peeked over. "That looks like a case file." I smiled without humor. "It is." Andre called twice that afternoon. Left 2 voicemails. One saying, "Ma, you okay?" The other more suspicious. "You been talking to people? Sophia said you're being weird." I didn't answer either. The digital trail was clear now. Time-stamped. Organized. Indisputable. By the time I left Herndon, the sky was gray, with rain coming. I held the folders under my coat and walked like I had a destination that mattered. Because I finally did. March 10th, I made my rounds. First stop was Miss Lorna's porch. She was sipping sweet tea and watching the mail truck pull off. Her eyes widened when she saw me, like she wasn't sure I was real. "Chile," she said, standing slow. "You been in the wind." "I'm all right," I said, "but I got something you need to hold on to." I handed her a sealed manila envelope. Inside, a USB with my Google Drive link, password protected, and a printed copy of the financial ledger. She didn't ask questions, just nodded and placed it gently in the cookie tin where she keeps her bills. Next stop, Mount Zion. I found Pastor Green in his study, the smell of old Bibles and lemon oil clinging to the wood panel walls. He looked up as I entered and didn't speak at first, just motioned for me to sit. I set a folder in front of him. "This is everything, every dime, every document. I'm planning a gathering Sunday, in your fellowship hall." He studied me like I was someone he hadn't seen before. "You sure you ready for this?" "Been ready for a long time," I said. "I just didn't know it." He nodded, then slid the folder toward him. "You have the hall, 2 o'clock. 3rd stop, Earl." He met me at Cascade Coffee, just outside the belt line, suit jacket off, sleeves rolled, still fine as ever. He reached for my hand, gentle but solid. "I made a backup," I told him, "and gave 2 people copies. If anything happens to me, this story still gets told." Earl smiled like a man who's already read the ending and knows it turns out fine. "I'll be at that meeting, and I'll back you however you need." Sophia must have felt the ripple, because that evening, she sent a direct message. "Sophia, you being messy, Ms. Renee. Not everything needs to be public." I didn't respond. She was right, though. Not everything needed to be public, just the truth. March 11th, I sat in the downtown library's computer lab with Ms. Hadley, watching me from the front desk like a quiet sentinel. The cursor blinked on a blank email draft, but I knew exactly what to say. To andre.johnson23@gmail.com. Subject: Sunday. Andre, I'm holding a meeting this Sunday at Mount Zion, Fellowship Hall. 2 p.m., you can come or not. But bring the truth with you. Ma, I hit send and felt the weight shift in the room, like the ceiling dropped an inch and made everything more intimate. 5 minutes later, the reply came. Andre, what kind of game is this, Ma? I closed the browser and printed 30 flyers. Just black and white, simple text. No drama. No accusations. Just Sunday, March 16th, 2 p.m., Fellowship Hall, MT Zion Baptist. A conversation about legacy, truth, and repair. All are welcome. Ms. Hadley offered to staple them for me. You want me to put a few up around here? She asked. Yes, ma'am, I said. And maybe one on the board at the Herndon Center, if they'll allow it. That evening, I walked around the old Collier Drive neighborhood, taping up 2 flyers, one by the Quick Stop, another near the post office. I wasn't trying to make a scene. I was inviting clarity. I also printed a revocation letter, official notice ending Andre's cosign privileges on any of my accounts or property. Ms. Hadley helped me notarize it at the UPS store. Andre still didn't call. Sophia posted a photo of her nails with the caption, "Unbothered. We groan. Let them act unbothered." Come Sunday, they'd have to bother showing up. By March 12th, the gloves came off. Andre posted a long Facebook status, tagging no one, but aimed directly at me. Y'all ever watch someone unravel because they listening to the wrong people? My mama out here confused, throwing around accusations in disrespect. SMH. Love her, but pray for her. 37 likes, 8 comments. Sophia, of course, led the charge. Pray for his mama, y'all. She not well. Another said, old people be so bitter sometimes. She need to rest and stop starting drama. I screenshotted every comment, filed them under online narratives in my Drive folder. It didn't hurt like it should have. Not anymore. I sat at the Herndon Center again, Rashida sliding me a cup of mint tea from her own stash. You got this, she said, tapping the screen where I was building a slideshow. Title slide, Renee Walker, Accountability and Aftermath, subhead, 47, 800 in financial support. 1 house burned, 1 son lost. Each slide had a date, a transaction, or a voicemail. Nothing emotional, just facts, facts, facts. Earl called that afternoon. I saw the posts. Want me to respond? No, I said, rubbing my temple. Let them talk. Let them tell on themselves. Let them feel comfortable. People lie loudest when they think no one's documenting. That night, I took a walk along Boulevard. The air was crisp, late winter clinging to the wind. I passed a group of teenagers doing wheelies on bikes and a couple sitting on their stoop, fingers intertwined, like puzzle pieces. Life went on. But come Sunday, the spotlight would shift, and this time, I'd be the one holding the receipts. March 16th, Sunday. The air hung heavy with spring pollen and nerves. I arrived at Mount Zion's Fellowship Hall at 1:25 p.m. sharp. Earl walked beside me, clean-shaven, wearing a pressed navy suit that caught the afternoon light like something regal. His arm curled gently around mine, not possessive, just steady. Under my other arm, the folder. Pastor Green stood by the entrance, lips pressed tight, eyes solemn. Room's ready, he said. They came. Just now. I nodded. Let's begin. Inside, 17 folding chairs had been set in a circle. Every seat held a handout packet, front page. Renee Walker, Personal Contributions and Family Support, 2013 to 2025. Then, bank screenshots, Cash App receipts, insurance denial letters, photos of my burned home, Facebook posts. All of it. I didn't need to defend myself anymore. I needed to document the truth, publicly. Andre and Sophia sat in the back, wearing sunglasses indoors like celebrities ducking flashbulbs. Sophia crossed her legs so wide her heel tapped the chair beside her. Andre nodded like nothing fazed him, but I could see it. His jaw ticking, his fingers twitching under the chair. Miss Lorna sat to my left, holding her cane upright like a staff. Pastor Green opened with a short prayer, not about peace, but about clarity. Let what needs to be seen be seen. At exactly 2 o'clock, I walked to the center of the room and placed the folder on the table. The room fell silent. "This isn't a confrontation," I said, my voice low but even. "It's an inventory." Earl handed me the clicker. The projector lit up the wall with the first slide. A screenshot of the $850 I'd sent Andre on January 12th. The exact amount that meant I missed my own insurance payment. A picture of my scorched living room, dated March 1st. The State Farm email. Andre's Miami post, uploaded March 6th. I didn't speak much. The documents spoke louder than I ever could. When I played the voicemail, his voice sang, "That ain't my fault, Ma. You should have handled your business." The room went still as I held breath. Andre shifted, leaned forward, opened his mouth to say something, but Pastor Green lifted his hand. "Let her finish." And I did, with grace, with dates, with proof. By 2:48 p.m., I was standing at the podium in the center of that circle of witnesses, with the weight of 17 quiet people around me and the echo of my own voice settling into the corners of the room. I turned the page in my handouts to the ledger. Printed in bold, $47,800 contributed, 2015 to 2024, followed by a neat line-by-line accounting. $5,700 for the Civic, $2,000 in student loan payments, $1,850 deposit on the Cascade condo, $900 graduation trip, $3,000 paid down credit debt, $7,200 in monthly aid during COVID, miscellaneous gifts, groceries, cash top-ups. At the bottom, I added emotional labor, housing security, maternal loyalty, not quantifiable, but not invisible. Then I pressed play on the final audio clip. My own voice this time, from that voicemail I left in October, after Sophia told me I couldn't just drop by. Just wanted to say sorry for stopping by. Y'all enjoy the food. Love you. It was the only apology I'd ever given that no one asked for, and the one that stuck with me the longest. I looked up at Andre. He wouldn't meet my eyes. I looked at Sophia. She stared back like a pane of glass, clear, cold, and untouched. "Every one of you," I said, turning to the room, "has known me longer than they have. You've seen me raise a child, fix a porch, give when I didn't have. I don't need a show of hands. I just need this, documented, heard, and left on record." Miss Lorna nodded. "We hear you, baby." Pastor Green closed the slideshow. "There's nothing left to debate," he said. "Let the record stand." Andre stood. "You really brought us here to make us look bad?" I looked him in the face, steady. "No, I brought you here so you could see what you refused to look at." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was accountability. Ms. Lorna pulled out her phone and filmed the last slide, slow and deliberate. Earl stepped forward and slipped the clicker from my hand. He didn't say a word. I didn't need him to. The sun was high and sharp over Boulevard in Irwin as I stood on the front steps of MTY New Condo, Unit 203, pale brick with green shutters, and a mailbox that clicked shut like it meant business. Earl stood beside me, keys in hand. "Paid in full," he said, slipping the deed from his leather folder. $165,000. In your name only. Not a cosign, not a loan, just yours. The paper in my other hand was the notarized deed, filed with Fulton County, dated and sealed. No one could take this from me. Not Sophia, not Andre, not any more guilt dressed up like love. We stood there for a minute, just listening to the city breathe around us. Kids playing down the block, a MARTA bus sighing past, the rustle of wind in the live oaks. Then we heard a car door slam. Andre. He was parked crooked across 2 visitor spots. Sophia stayed in the passenger seat, sunglasses still on like armor. He walked up the path slow, not angry, just exposed. He looked at me, then at Earl, then at the building behind me. "This what you wanted?" he said. "To show off?" I didn't answer. "This," I said, "is what security looks like. You should know the difference by now." He opened his mouth, but no words came. Just a bitter silence that smelled like endings. I walked up the stairs, each step steady. At the top, I paused. "You were my son before you were anyone else's," I said without turning around. "I gave you everything. And when I had nothing, you locked the door." He didn't follow me. I didn't expect him to. Inside, the condo was quiet and new. Sunlight spilled across the wood floors. I placed the keys on the kitchen counter and ran my hand along the cool surface. Later, I'd hang photos, water plants, play old records.